Hi students, welcome to session 5 of Form and Movement in Animals. Students, in today's session we are going to study about movement in human beings. We have been through movement in many animals. We have studied about movement in birds, fish, snakes and other animals like snail, cockroach, earthworm. And in today's session we will continue this lesson and we will learn about movement in human beings. So let us start with today's session. Yes students, we know that there are different parts in our body. So different parts of our body move while we remain at the same place. And we also move from one place to another. Like we get up, we go to our teacher, or we go to the school compound, or go to home after school, and we go home after school. We run, we walk, we jump, we skip and move from place to place. So all these movements are possible because of something which is present in our body, or which is the part of our body which makes it move. So basically we will study about the human skeleton, because the human skeleton is performing many functions which helps in the movement of various body parts, and that is why we are able to move the different parts of our body while we remain at the same place. So let us see that what is meant by human skeleton. Yes, the human skeleton provides shape and form to the human body, and we know very well that the average human adult skeleton has 206 bones, and it also performs various functions. So basically the average human adult skeleton has 206 bones which are joined together by ligaments and tendons. Let me write it down for you. Right? So the human adult skeleton has 206 bones which are joined together by ligaments and tendons. We will study about ligaments and tendons in higher classes. Right, so babies basically they are born with 270 to 300 soft bones, about 64 which is more than an adult, 64 to 70 which is more than an adult, and many of these fuse together by the age of 20 or 25 into 206 hard permanent bones. So remember that when babies are born they have 270 to 300 approximately soft bones, and when they reach the age of 20 or 25 these bones they fuse together, these soft bones fuse together and they become hard and permanent, and so the number reduces from approximately 300 soft bones to 206 bones. So basically our vital organs are protected by this skeletal system, which includes or which consists of human skeleton. Even the brain is protected by the surrounding skull, as the heart and lungs are protected by ribcage. Even the muscles are connected to bones, and where bones meet one another is typically called a joint, which we will study later on. So basically this is all about the human skeletal system which makes the movement possible in human beings. So skeletal system is the system of bones and associated cartilages and joints of human body, and together these structures form the human skeleton. So skeleton can be defined as the hard framework of human body. How do we define skeleton? Yes, skeleton is the hard framework of human body, around which the entire body is built. So almost all the hard parts of human body are components of human skeletal system. Like joints, they are very important because they make the hard and rigid skeleton which allow different types of movements at different locations. And imagine that if the skeleton were without joints, no movement would have taken place. And so the significance of human body was to be no more than a stone. So joints are very much important because they help us, or they allow different types of movements at different places, at different locations, or rather they also provide movement while we remain at the same place. So this is about the human skeleton. Here you can see the beautiful diagram, which is a beautiful picture of human skeleton. Here you can see that there are various types of bones and joints where these bones meet, right? So we will study about bones later on. So that was about human skeleton. But we also need to see that human skeleton is made up of 206 bones. Human adult skeleton is made up of 206 bones. But what type of function it performs? Let us see. Yes, it performs the following functions. Like the first function is it helps in the movement of various body parts, which we discussed. Secondly, it provides shape and support to the body. We will see that how it supports the parts of the body, and it also protects the soft internal organs of our body. So basically, these are very important functions which the skeletal system or the human skeleton carries out. So human skeleton performs all these important functions that are necessary for the survival of human beings, because without movements there would be nothing possible to do or to carry out any work. So the various organ systems perform functions of our body, and these systems work well because with specific locations inside our body. So this framework which gives our body its shape is skeleton, which is very important. Here you can see an image of human skeleton, the framework of bones. Yes. You may also be very amazed to know that bones are filled with a substance called as marrow, which produces blood cells. So bones are basically filled with this substance called as marrow, and that is why it is termed as bone marrow. So this is a very important term, so you should remember it. It produces blood cells, basically red blood cells, because of which we can say that our blood is red in color, right? So what are the functions of skeletal system? We know that skeletal system extends from the top of the head to the tip of the toe, and it has 206 bones. But during birth there are around 300 bones, out of which some bones get fused during the growth of the baby into an adult, right? So its function is basically to support the body and to give definite shape to it. It also protects the delicate and vital organs of our body like heart, brain, lungs, etc. So it also helps in movement and locomotion. And lastly, some bones of skeletal system contain bone marrow, which produces blood cells, specifically red blood cells. Now there is one more thing. We know that calcium, it is very much important for our body. You might have noticed that why your mother emphasizes always on drinking milk. Why she emphasizes on drinking milk more and more? Because it contains a high amount of calcium, and calcium is very much essential for strong and healthy bones. So there is one more thing which you have to remember, that calcium is very much essential for strong healthy bones. And you know that 99% of calcium in our body is in our bones and teeth. So one more function of skeletal system is that it serves as a storage area of minerals such as calcium, this is calcium and phosphorus. So calcium is essential for strong healthy bones, and it serves as a storage area of minerals. The skeletal system function. The skeleton serves as the human skeleton. It serves as the storage area of minerals such as calcium and phosphorus. So this is also one of the function of skeletal system, right? So the bones which are present in the human adult skeleton consist of calcium and phosphorus along with some proteins also. But 99% of the calcium is in our body is in our bones and teeth. Always remember that. So that was all about the functions of skeletal system. Now let us see that of which parts or how many parts our skeletal system is made up of. So let us see. Yes, different parts of the human skeleton. So there are different parts like skull, ribcage, backbone, limbs. They all together form the human skeleton, and all are very important in one or the other way. Like we know that there are some very important components of human skeleton. Like human skeleton is composed of three main components: bones, associated cartilages and joints, which we will discuss later on. So first of all, we will study about skull. Yes students, what is skull? We know that the skull protects the brain from mechanical shock or injury. Like all bones in the skull are fixed except the lower jaw. Now here you can see this is the image of the skull. Here you can see that only lower jaw can move, while the rest of all the things like this skull and upper jaw, they are fixed. So the lower jaw can be moved and it allows us to talk and chew food. If you have never noticed, you can notice it now. The lower jaw is very much helpful because it can be moved and it allows us to talk and chew food, but not the upper jaw. It is the lower jaw which performs this type of function. So skull is the bony framework of the head, and it is made up of 22 bones. How many bones? Yes, this bony framework of the head, which is known as skull, is made up of 22 bones, most of which are fused together. So out of these, 8 bones form the brain box or cranium, which encloses and protects our brain, and rest of the 14 bones form the shape of our face. So the only movable bone is the lower jaw, which is used for talking, eating, yawning, chewing, etc. So this is about one part of the human skeleton, main part. Now let us move on to other main part of the human skeleton. Yes, ribcage. Students, the ribcage provides protection to our heart and lungs, and most people have 12 pairs of ribs. Like we can feel our ribs by running our fingers across our chest. Like this is the beautiful image of rib cage, and this central or the middle portion is termed as sternum, and rest of them over here are ribs. So together it protects our heart and lungs. So basically these bones which are present in the rib cage are called ribs, and they are present in 12 pairs, one on each side. So each rib joins the backbone at the back and the chest bone in the front, and together they form rib cage, which protects the internal organs like lungs, heart, part of the stomach, kidneys, etc. So it also plays a very important role, and it forms a very important part of the human skeleton. Now let us see which are the other important parts of the human skeleton. Yes, backbone. The backbone is made up of 33 small bones called as vertebrae. Try to recall, we studied about backbone, which is also called as spine, or we can also call it as vertebral column. Why? Because this is vertically shaped. So this acts as a column, and it is made up of 33 small bones called as vertebrae. So it is termed as vertebral column or spine or backbone. So basically what it does, it surrounds and protects our spinal cord. So it is made up of 33 irregular shaped bones which contain small canal in the center. Here you can see it contains this small canal in the center through which an extension of the brain called the spinal cord passes. And that is why we can say that it surrounds and protects our spinal cord. So basically the vertebrae are joined together by some joints, and it allows a person to bend forward, and the backbone allows us to stand upright. So we can say that it helps us to maintain our balance. So our balance is maintained due to this backbone which is present at the back, right? And it allows us to stand upright. Even it supports the head or skull on top and is joined to bones of the rib cage. So both these things, both these parts, backbone or spine and the rib cage, they protect the spinal cord, right? So basically rib cage protects the internal organs, while backbone, it protects our spinal cord. But remember that spinal cord, which is the extension of the brain where the vertebral column is present, that vertebral column supports the head or skull on the top and is joined to the bones of the rib cage, which then protects the spinal cord, right? So remember that backbone protects the spinal cord. Yes, the next very important part of the human skeleton is limbs. Now basically we have two pairs of limbs. First one we can see here, these are forelimbs and these are hind limbs. Hind limbs means legs and forelimbs means arms. So the hind limbs, which are also called as legs, are used for walking, and forelimbs, which are arms, allow us to do a variety of tasks such as lifting and using objects. So basically this is the beautiful image of forelimbs and hind limbs. We studied about the four important parts, different parts of the human skeleton. So basically skull, rib cage, backbone and limbs, these all four different parts form the human skeleton. But this human skeleton alone cannot perform all type of functions. It needs to have something else 2. Now we know that human skeleton is made up of 206 bones, and the different parts of the human skeleton are skull, ribcage, backbone and limbs, right? But what about the other bones? What about the other components which makes up this human skeleton? Yes, I'm talking about bones. So what are bones and how are they important for the movement in the human skeleton, for the movement of our body? Let us see. Yes, bones are rigid structures that cannot bend, and all our movements are brought about by joints which are present in our body and with the help of muscles. And that is why we say that with the help of muscles and with the help of joints, all these movements become possible, like running, walking, skipping, etc. So basically, these systems are called as musculoskeletal system, in which the skeletal system, the parts of skeletal system are also involved and the muscles are also involved, right? So here we can say that bone is a tough and rigid form of tissue, and it is the weight-bearing organ of human body, which is responsible for almost all the strength of human skeleton. So bones also play a very important role in the movement of these body parts of the human being or any other organism. So all our movements are brought about by joints and muscles. But what are joints? They are the places where two or more bones meet. Now here is a beautiful image of a joint. This is a joint, and these are two bones, first one and the second one. So these two bones are joined because of the joint present in between, and that is why we are able to move our knees, we are able to move our shoulders, we are able to move our elbow, ankle, etc. So joints are important components of human skeleton because they make up the human skeleton mobile. Mobile means it makes the human skeleton move. So a joint occurs between two or more bones, right? So our body has skeletal system which is made up of bones and joints, and it has also another system called as muscular system, which consists of muscles. So the muscles over the entire skeleton, and it covers the entire skeleton, and it causes movement at joints by contracting and expanding. So muscles work in pairs for the movement of a bone. Remember, when one of the muscle contracts, the bone is pulled in its direction and the other muscle relaxes. And next what happens? The relaxed muscle now contracts and pulls the bone back to its original position while the first muscle relaxes. So in this way, the muscles and joints, they make the movements possible. They make the movements of the bones possible, right? So although there are many different types of joints, these joints are divided into three basic types based on how much or how little they let the bones move. So let us see. Yes, there are three main types of joints present in our body based on how much or how little they let their bones move. And they are fixed joints, freely movable joints, and slightly movable joints. So basically, joints allow our body to move in many ways. Some joints open and close like a hinge, whereas others allow for more complicated movement like a shoulder or a hip. For example, it allows for backward, forward, sideways and rotating movement. So joints are classified by their range of movement, whether they can move or they cannot move, or they can move only partially or little. So between the edges of the bony plates there are joints, and these are the joints which make the movement possible with the help of muscles, along with the muscles, right? So the first one which we saw, that is fixed joints. Now we will first study about fixed joints, freely movable joints and slightly movable joints. Let me teach you that what are movable, freely movable and slightly movable joints. Now remember, this is the first one, fixed joints. Yes, fixed joints do not allow any movement, and that is why they are termed in this way. Fixed joints or immovable means they do not move at all. The second thing about fixed joints, the example where it is present, yes, the joints between the bones of the skull are examples of fixed joints, right? So this is about fixed joints. Now the second one is freely movable joints. What are freely movable joints? Yes, they can move quite freely. They can move quite freely and they allow a variety of movements. And where they are present? Yes. Examples of freely movable joints are elbow and knee joints, right? So this is about freely movable joints. The third one is slightly movable joints. Now this term itself means that they can move slightly, means they allow a very little movement. And where they are located? Examples includes the joints between most vertebrae. Remember 33 small bones which are present in the backbone, they are vertebrae. So the joints between most vertebrae are slightly movable joints. So these are the differences between these three types of joints, and they are based on how they move and how much they move and how little they let the bones move. So we saw that what are fixed joints, freely movable joints and slightly movable joints. Now here we know that freely movable joints, they can move quite freely and allow a variety of movements. Like they are further divided into four. Now here I've mentioned only four. There are basically six, but we are going to study four of them. So the first one, the first freely movable joint is the pivot joint. Second is the ball and socket joint, and third is the hinge joint, and fourth one is the gliding joint. So the four major movable joints which are present in our body are ball and socket joint, pivot joint, hinge joint and gliding joint. Right? We know that these are the joints which can move quite freely and they allow a variety of movements, and that is why they are divided into these four. So we will study about all the movable, freely movable joints in the next session. Till then, keep learning and stay happy. Thank you.